When I first bought the house, I didn't care about square footage or granite countertops. What sold me was the lake, a quiet stretch of glassy water tucked behind the property, surrounded by willow trees and cattails that swayed like dancers in the wind. That lake became my refuge. After 22 years in the U.S. Army and losing my wife to cancer, I needed peace, not people. The lake didn't talk back or judge. It just listened to the hum of my old boat, the splash of a fishing line, or the sighs that came when memories got too heavy. The neighborhood was called Riverside Meadows, a master-planned community that looked cloned from one blueprint. Perfect lawns, identical mailboxes, every garage painted the same color. The Riverside HOA ran it with an iron clipboard. Ironically, I was the only homeowner whose property actually touched the water. When I bought the land, I made sure the lake was private, deeded entirely to my parcel. It was mine legally and spiritually. At first, the HOA treated me like a novelty, the retired vet who fed ducks at dawn. They waved, left newsletters, and invited me to their 4th of July cookout. I never went. I wasn't rude. I just liked the sound of water more than small talk. Then one morning, I smelled something foul. A sour, chemical stench rolled across the cattails and hit me like a gut punch. The water had turned gray and oily. Fish surfaced, gasping. 2 floated belly up by noon. I followed the shoreline until I found it. A new metal drainage pipe, freshly installed, snaking from the back fence into the lake. The rim was coated in greasy black residue. Waste. Someone had connected a drain to my lake. I checked my property map. No easement. No right-of-way. Whoever installed it had crossed onto private land. I called the HOA office. A woman named Cheryl said she'd look into it. No one came. A week passed, and the smell got worse. Finally, I paddled out in my canoe and saw the rainbow sheen of oil on the surface. My anger burned hotter than the summer sun. Someone had violated my sanctuary. That evening, I carried a mason jar of polluted water to the HOA office and set it on the front desk. This, I said, came out of my lake. Out walked Mr. Dalton, the HOA president, tall, smug, wearing a blue blazer and a smirk. Mr. Harper, right? The maintenance you're referring to was permitted. Community drainage improvements, all within our rights. Your improvements don't give you permission to dump on private land, I said. He chuckled. Technically, that lake connects to our stormwater system. Runoff is shared. I'd advise you not to make a fuss. We wouldn't want to complicate your membership standing. Membership standing. The arrogance of it. That night, I walked the shore under the moon, flashlight in hand. The pipe trickled steadily, ripples warping the reflection of the sky. I knew then it wasn't an accident. The HOA was using my lake as a dumping ground. So I started an investigation. Old habits die hard. 22 years in logistics and reconnaissance taught me how to track, record, and build a case. I followed the pipe uphill, through brush and mud, until I found a hidden junction box buried under mulch. No city logo, just a stenciled code, RMC Phase 2. Back home, I checked the HOA's online documents and found a permit request rejected by the Department of Environmental Quality. The project tag matched. They'd been denied permission to redirect runoff, and did it anyway. I gathered evidence, photos, coordinates, maps. The next morning, I went to City Hall. A clerk named Darla helped me pull public records. The easement lines ended 37 feet before the lake. Legally, the HOA had 0 rights to that water. That night, I saw a maintenance truck at the lake. 2 men in reflective vests unloaded a drum, opened the box, and poured its contents into the pipe. I filmed everything. When I confronted Dalton again, he tried to bluff. If you have concerns, submit them in writing, he said. I already did, I replied. Now I've got footage, and your permit denial. His smirk faltered. I handed a flash drive to the receptionist. That's a copy. Another one's already with the state. Then I called an old friend, Maya Brooks, an environmental attorney I'd served with overseas. She didn't mince words. That's a Class A environmental violation. I'll contact DEQ. Don't talk to anyone without a witness. That was the start of the war. I installed trail cameras, hidden in birdhouses and toolboxes along the shoreline. The footage caught everything. Trucks arriving at night, men unloading barrels, one muttering, "Make it fast." The guys got cameras now. When I sent the files to Maya, she replied, "We've got them dead to rights." The Department of Environmental Quality launched an investigation. Within days, state inspectors and county deputies raided the site. The dumpers were arrested right under the willow tree, the same spot where I'd once scattered my wife's ashes. But even after justice started rolling, I wasn't done. The lake was poisoned. The fish were gone. The water reeked of chemicals. I decided to drain it completely. Maya helped me file a controlled remediation plan with the county. Everything was legal: containment tanks, pump schedules, soil treatment, wildlife relocation. When I fired up the pumps that Monday morning, black sludge poured into the tanks, and panic spread through the HOA. By noon, they'd sent lawyers and cease and desist letters. I ignored them. I was within my rights, and this time, the law was on my side. 3 days later, the local news showed up. Thanks to Maya's contacts, Channel 7 Charlotte ran a segment titled "Veteran Drains Lake" to expose HOA dumping scandal. They filmed me standing on the cracked lake bed, pumps roaring in the background. When the reporter asked why I did it, I looked straight at the camera and said, "Because no one else would." When the people in charge break the rules, someone has to remind them what accountability looks like. The story went viral across the state. Homeowners groups everywhere shared it. The HOA's reputation collapsed overnight. The DEQ report publicly named the Riverside HOA responsible for illegal dumping and environmental violations. The penalties exceeded $400,000. Several board members resigned, but Dalton stayed, stubborn, defiant. At the emergency community meeting, residents filled the clubhouse. I brought the same mason jar of black water and set it on the table. I asked nicely, I told them. I followed the rules. I filed reports. And I was ignored, fined, and threatened. This, I lifted the jar, is what your silence allowed. The crowd erupted in applause. People were angry, not at me, but at what had been done in their name. Dalton tried to regain control. "You're not a hero, Mr. Harper," he sneered. "You're a vigilante." I smiled. "You're right. I broke something, your illusion of control." The recall vote passed with 91% in favor. Dalton was removed. A new board took over, led by Karen Hayes, a level-headed neighbor with a conscience. The county later held hearings downtown. The HOA was found liable on all counts: unlawful discharge, obstruction of investigation, and environmental negligence. They were ordered to pay for cleanup, audits, and 5 years of state oversight. Dalton never showed up to court. He'd sold his house and left the state. Afterward, Karen approached me. "On behalf of everyone here, thank you," she said. "We'll fix it for real this time." For months, volunteers and conservation crews worked to restore the lake bed. New soil, native plants, and clean runoff barriers were installed. Slowly, nature began to heal. One morning, I saw ducks return, tentative at first, then confident. Frogs followed, then dragonflies. The smell of rot was gone. The air was clean again. The HOA changed too. Under Karen's leadership, they rewrote the bylaws. Fines required proof, meetings were public, and environmental stewardship became policy. She asked me to chair the new Lake Preservation Committee. I agreed, not for power, but purpose. A few weeks later, a neighborhood kid named Toby knocked on my door. He held a jar with 2 tiny frogs. "Is it okay to put them back?" he asked. I smiled. "Let's find a good spot." Together we released them into the shallows. They disappeared with a soft plop, leaving ripples that shimmered in the sun. That evening, as I sat on the dock, the willow tree behind me rustled in a calm breeze. The lake mirrored the sunset, clean and alive again. Then, footsteps. I turned and saw Dalton. Thinner now, no blazer, just a windbreaker and guilt in his eyes. "I came to say something," he said quietly. "I was wrong. About the lake, about you." I nodded. "That lake was never mine," I said. "But I was its keeper. You forgot what it means to protect something sacred." He nodded once, then walked away. I stayed. The sky turned gold. The frogs sang again. A heron dipped its beak into the water without fear. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. Not the fragile kind you guard, but the kind you earn. The lake had been poisoned, drained, and reborn, and so had I.